Superintendent Debbie Critchfield, how are you?
I'm so great. Getting over a little cold, but I will not spread any germs. I'm on the tail end.
Well, listen, the microphones aren't connected that closely, so I'm not that worried.
Some people are more sensitive to that than others, and so just making that clear.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Listen, there's a lot that I want to talk to you about. If the time permitting, we have some results back in from the education progress that Idaho is making. We have the legislative session coming up in just a few months. People are already starting to roll out different ideas. One thing, if we could touch on really quickly, one thing that I've realized, I covered the legislative session obviously this last year. It was great experience, and I'm planning to do it again. But one of the things that I've realized is people come out of the legislative session or come to the legislative with a bunch of solutions, right? And they're like, okay, I have this idea or I have this thing. And a lot of those, or at least some of them, get applied to education. Like, I know how we can do better education with this piece of technology or with this, evolving program or with this revolutionary whatever. And very frequently, these things are kind of, I don't want to call them fads, but they're kind of an idea that somebody had in a research institute that they think, if rolled out at scale, could potentially be this groundbreaking thing. In reality, the bulk of those over a long enough time frame usually get thrown away, and then they come back to like fundamental education mechanisms. Is that something, first off, am I accurate on that? And second, is that something that you worry about with Idaho as the superintendent?
I think what you've just described is how our teachers and our school administrators feel. More, adding on, not taking things away. Here's a better way to build the thing. And we haven't taken a look back to say, are there other laws and things that need to come off as we put new on? And so that's always a concern. We see a number of things, national conversations, something that worked really well in a state that maybe isn't necessarily about math or reading, but touches on some other aspect of schooling. And someone, will key into that. Hey, we saw that this is happening in this other state. Can we start doing that in Idaho? We also see instances where maybe there was a breakdown of communication or problem solving in one particular district. And frustrated patrons or even school board members will approach their local legislator and say, hey, this was a problem here. And many times that can get blown up into, oh, it must be a problem everywhere. Well, maybe not. Let's take a look before we legislate an issue for an entire state that maybe has more localized solutions. So it can be all of those things. I always appreciate the fact that people are focused on good educational delivery and outcomes. I think that's good for everybody. I like it when those who have ideas and are in positions to put these forward will come and say, hey, what do you think? Now, I may not agree with how it goes about or even think that it's a priority, but I do appreciate the heads up or being engaged to kind of troubleshoot and talk about it. The worst is when I hear about something that's being presented in a committee. Hey, this morning, this bill is going to drop. Oh, whoa. Okay. Where's that coming from? What's behind it?
Gotcha. So essentially, if somebody's going to step into your office, they're like, just give me a heads up if you think there's a problem with the education system or, you're going to present some solution that may have worked in Kansas, right? But it's like, okay, does this apply to Idaho? Like, was it something unique to Kansas's, educational system that worked? The reason I ask about this is because it's, you, in the time that you've been superintendent, we've recently seen a jump of something like doubled, like 13 or 14% in reading proficiency in the lower grades. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So that didn't come as a result of like inserting some new tech program or inserting some new, Common Core equivalent of like teaching the 5-year-old to read, right? These things are coming about by going back to kind of basic rudimentary reading methods, right?
That's my line, back to basics. That's what we've been saying for the last couple of years. Specifically in reading, we focus on phonics. Now, there's a little bit more involved in the phonics realm that we call the science of reading. But the easiest way to kind of capture all of it is for phonics, because we can relate to that. I think for adults that went through the system learning phonics, we question ourselves, well, why did we get away from that? Which I know how and why we did as I look. But now that we are returning and returned there, the achievement levels and the growth are just incredible. And when we find places in the state where they are all in on how to do this, where they're training their teachers, their administrators, their curriculum aligns, their budget aligns with the priorities. We are seeing just off the charts kind of growth. And in schools where the demographic says maybe we wouldn't have that type of growth. Poverty is the biggest indicator of success. Like it or not, you can look at schools that are high poverty, and it's not to say that kids can't learn and achieve. It's a little more challenging in those places. Where we have instituted smart coaching, phonics, and these ingredients, we are seeing success.
What's smart coaching? What does that mean?
Smart coaching it's a fancy acronym, maybe not that fancy, but it's an acronym that comes back to how we are training our teachers around phonics. And so the coaching model, just like any coach experience, is something that happens in real time with real people. It's not a one-day computer program that you watch. It's not a weekend conference or a book that you read. It is coaches that are trained in effective teaching around reading, around phonics, and then they go and they support a teacher in real time on how to do that. So a teacher in a classroom will do what they do, and they're teaching reading, and now we're going to take a little test to see how the kids are doing. Sure. And I'm not sure that we're getting this. Many times the teacher, especially in rural Idaho, they don't have 5 other third grade teachers to go talk to. Hey, how did you make that work?
Drawing on essentially like an immediate mentorship.
Yes. And so then this coach is there to say, try this. Here's how to make that work better. And what our teachers are saying across the board, I wish I would have had that years ago, or this is something that every teacher needs to have. I recently got a thank you note in the mail. I don't always get thank you notes. I get mail, but a teacher in the Pocatello School District took her own time. I do not know this person. I mean, I know her name now, but did not know the person, sent me a thank you note about this coaching model and said, I wish I had had this 25 years ago. This is making it so great for me as a professional. Our students are achieving. I'm excited that this is where Idaho is now. And I appreciated that because we don't always, we hear things and we see the results are happening, but to get that personal interaction of someone saying this was incredible and they've been in teaching for 25 years is a win.
That's when I have a friend from high school who actually went into education administration. The last time I spoke with him, it was years ago. He was a principal of a middle school, and we kind of got engaged in a conversation about teacher pay. And what blew me away is, as an administrator, he was saying, "Look, the teachers aren't necessarily asking for more pay. And again, I'm not getting into a payment conversation, but what he said is, look, what they need is more support. And I never understood what the support really meant. And ultimately, Idaho is a unique situation because we have the best bang for the buck.
Number one in the country. We got rated by the Heritage Foundation. That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. So for every dollar, we get the best return on every dollar that we get spent. And this is the kind of thing, the smart coaching thing, that my understanding at least, that is one of those support mechanisms where it's like, if somebody's struggling and having a hard time and they're making X amount of salary and they're displeased with their job, you can throw more money at them, but that's not going to change the fact that they're displeased with their job because they're not understanding how to get results.
It's that quality piece. And I can tell you to a person when I talk to teachers, and I think that I travel around all of our schools all the time. And I do, for those that don't know, I really do. The number one thing that teachers present to me before pay is the experience that they're having in the classroom around classroom management, behaviors, and how to get to that teaching part. They want to be good teachers. Teachers come at it. There is a science to teaching, but there's also an art to teaching. And we need both of these things there. And so we know what the ingredients are for success, specifically around literacy. And now we're sharing those everywhere, saying, here's how you get to success. And part of that is providing a supportive environment around effective instruction in the classroom, person to person.
So that that kind of X factor, which is, hey, if you can increase or enhance the experience positively for the person teaching, you don't necessarily, you should fight for every dollar. Teachers want every dollar, fine, no problem. But you also, if you can increase that experience and make it better, then you're going to have better teacher retention and better teacher satisfaction. And fight for every dollar, fine. And teachers,
sure. Resources are important. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to where educators come from. That the first part of engaging me isn't, hey, we need you to go ask for more money for us. We've done a lot in Idaho to increase the career ladder, and I think we need to be appreciative and show that off, and that's great. But our teachers also need that support. They need that value piece. They want to be better at what they do. And now because of these components that we have in place around making informed decisions around curriculum that are based in phonics, and then coming in and teaching our teachers and our administrators how to do that well. As our students are taking the tests, yes, we see that growth and achievement in the test scores, but now we're hearing that qualitative side from our educators saying, I have a renewed interest in teaching this because it's so exciting to see how well our students are performing. 20% of Idaho students have characteristics of dyslexia. And the beauty of phonics, among others, is that it is one of those things that helps every reader regardless of where their starting place is. That's important.
Yeah. Kind of switching, I wanted to ask you about CTE programs in general. I've been talking to a lot of people about nuclear, and one of the unique things about Idaho is we have Idaho State University. Did you know they have a reactor on campus? Mm-hmm. Of course you do, but you're the superintendent. But I didn't. I was like, you have a reactor? So they have, we have these really unique aspects of our Idaho education system that are available to students that other states do not have, or at least not all other states. I'm sure some do. And more than that, we have nuclear coming, kind of a resurgence of nuclear interest nationally. And we're going to need a whole lot of people. We're going to need nuclear welders. We'll need nuclear techs. We'll need nuclear physicists. We'll need nuclear everything around building, operating, theoretical and practical around these systems. And Idaho is uniquely positioned to educate and, train and essentially produce these high-paying, fantastic jobs. That's just one aspect of, a broader CTE kind of industry within the education system. Why is the CTE industry in general seems to be really exploding in Idaho? Every single educator I talked about, they're like, well, CTE. What is there something driving that from the state level as well?
Well, this is where I don't normally do this, but I'm going to take a little credit here for this. This has been a priority for mine and for the last closing out my third year on this job. We've seen some significant improvements, expansions, investments, and I love the topic. And so I'm going to give you sort of my little philosophical piece of where I come at from why we talk about career technical education at the level that we do and why I think we need to highlight it and really elevate it. And then I want to share a couple of examples of what I mean. So I have learned, and not just from my own students, but my own kids and kids in our community, but just statewide, our students 7th through 12th grade, particularly as you're getting into that 7th and 8th grade area, we want to expose them to why are we learning? Are we learning so that you can do well on a test? No, we are not. We are learning so that you can go be a productive citizen, neighbor, contributor, have a job. I mean, we're creating citizens. We're creating people. And looking at the relevancy for our high school students, I think has been very important. Many of our students haven't seen themselves in the hallways and classrooms of our schools like they used to. There's such a wide variety of opportunities in our local communities that we want to create something, an environment where our students have connected the dots as to why it's important that they come to school. I'm not just coming here so that I can be marked here. Sure. I'm not just coming here so that I can, read a book, although reading is important, clearly. Mm-hmm. We want them to understand the why. Why are you here? And part of that really is this connecting of education to economic strength. Well, how do we do that? Well, we want to show our students that there's dignity in hard work. that there is a value of skills. And kind of this bigger philosophical point is there's a power in a purpose-driven education. It's the why. Why are we doing this? And for me, career technical education just represents all of those things. So almost 3 years ago, I went to the legislature and said, if I can get an investment in career technical education, we have an opportunity to expand and grow programs within the CTE realm. And I'm very grateful. There was the first year was $40 million. The second year, last year, was an additional 20. So we've had $60 million in a grant process. It was a little like Shark Tank in the sense that, but in a good way, in the sense that we, as the council, and I'm the chair of the council, we said, okay, schools, charter schools, traditional schools, come to the council with your idea. Now, there were some things they had to do. I mean, it couldn't be just pie in the sky, frivolous.
Sure.
You have to show us that you have students that are interested in whatever that program is. You need an instructor. The school needs to be able to show that once the seed money, so to speak, was given to you, that you could sustain this. Because we weren't going to just throw money away because there was this fly-by-night idea.
Sure.
But still kind of think of that concept of schools having the flexibility and the creativity to come and say, here's what we want to do. So I'm going to share some examples of what we've done. New Plymouth School District. They had hired a CTE teacher that had come out of a commercial meat processing, meat cutting business and wanted to get into the classroom. So he came to the council and his proposal was, if I could extend my lab and have the elements needed for processing meat, I'm qualified to teach this class. And we can show kids that hunt, that may be interested in getting into this profession, how to cut and process meat, game, and this is what I'd like to do. And we said, okay, we can check a bunch of boxes. Let's make that happen for you. And so this year he's got students in that class. Now, not every kid's going to go be a butcher.
Sure.
And if they are, that's great. But in Idaho, for kids to be able to know, that hunt and to be able to know how to do that, that's a lifelong ability, a lifelong skill. And we were able to give the funds for the teacher to be able to do that. Shelley, over in their school district, they started an ag drone class. Ag is the primary industry over in that community. And the teacher said, I could get a lot of kids some summer work. We see more farmers that are using ag to spray their fields or drones to spray their fields. We see more technology, especially drones, involved in ag. Let's get the kids trained on this technology. And so their grant ask was for the drone and for a trailer. And so we're not even talking every school was like millions of dollars. But the fact that they were thinking about how to do it. We've got a school in Mackay that they had a program where they raise golden trout. They work with the local Fish and Game. At the end of the school year, they take about, I can't even remember now, 700 golden trout that they've grown and raised that are about this long. They go put them into the Lost River. And there's a whole process related to biology and just all of the science things involved in a fun class for these kids. And so he came to expand a program that he's had. In the North, we started 9 forestry programs where students now have access to industry recognized equipment, as the saws, as an example. And in that area, you have generational families that have been involved in the forest products industry, whether it was logging directly in the woods, which, by the way, uses high technology now. Logging is very different than it was for their grandparents. And then all of the jobs related to anything in a mill. They need all the jobs. So we've taken some of these models and now we're having conversations around INL with nuclear energy. How do we create some of these programs using industry as a partner, this public-private partnership, and getting those into high schools over in that part of the state? And here in the Treasure Valley, around semiconductors, what are some of the things that we can do? Now I'm going to finish my very long talking to say, how do we know that this is successful? Because it's one thing to say, look at all the money that we've put into it. How do we know that this was a good investment? What's the ROI? We're now, as these shops and programs are now coming online and we're expanding. Just 2 weeks ago, I learned that Idaho was rated #1 in the country for the numbers of students that are involved in a career technical education program, also tied to a dual credit program. #1 in the country. We are #5 in the country for the numbers of just students that are taking career technical education programs. We have the highest graduation rate that we've had in the last 10 years. We see more kids that are involved in apprenticeships and internships, more kids that are going directly into jobs and careers that are benefiting their own communities and for sure themselves. And so we've now have this data set to confirm what I knew was there. We needed those resources put into those places. And then we allowed the districts and charters the ability to create something that was important to them, that their kids cared about. And now we're seeing what that looks like. And I'm excited to see what the next 5 years looks like, because we're now down in the 7th and 8th grade level, and we're exposing kids to these opportunities. And so broadly speaking, not only was this an investment in kids in schools, it was an investment in our state.
No,
I know that's a lot. That's a mouthful.
No,
but
listen, I got locked. First off, I truthfully, and please don't judge me for this, like, I didn't know you were a CTE champion and have been for years.
I have.
I'm sorry. I don't listen. I'm not a very good person.
No, you're not.
I don't believe it or
You-
not. I don't
no,
do
you're
like
not.
a lot of
You are a
homework.
good person.
I'm just
No,
But
there's
my
a lot
point is,
of
I
layers.
wasn't. Like, this wasn't like a softball. I'm like, okay,
No.
I'll say, okay. So first off, that's great. Like, I had Elliot. Come on, what's his name? Elliot.
From the Office of School Safety and Security?
No,
a different one.
From formerly of Northwest Premium Meats.
Oh,
who came on?
okay.
Because again, when you're talking about meat processing,
It's an aging out profession, by the way.
That's my point. And what he was getting at, he's like, look, what you've had is you've had a kind of a large scale push towards beef. He's like, you don't see cuts of beef that you used to see 50 or 60 years ago in the grocery store, because the grocery store is like, okay, I need 3 different roasts, I need 3 different steaks, I need this, and then give me a lot of chuck and like maybe some fajita steak or whatever it is, right? There's a steak that I didn't know existed until like a year ago called the Denver steak or whatever. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. It's like a ribeye, but comes off the bottom of a chuck.
Okay.
And he's like, the problem is people don't know where or how to cut that anymore. And so you have all of this kind of legacy generational knowledge around meat cutting and utilization and cooking, because very few people know how to use or cook these different types of these different cuts. So they just all get made into, ground beef. You have these problems with this industry. As it ages out, we lose this institutional knowledge. And
Not on my watch. We're not.
Well, apparently. And to your point about, like, I used to, when I was an SAT tutor for almost 20 years, people would ask me, like, why? Like, when are we ever going to use this? And, I had an answer to that, which is you have to be really good at learning things if you're going to be successful as an adult. Like, you need to learn how to learn.
Right.
And just the process of going through this is valuable. But to your point of like, okay, look, if you know how to fly a drone and you can spray fields, you're going to have a job in Idaho pretty much forever, right? Like, that's a really valuable thing. Or if you understand deeply the nature and capacity of conservation around fisheries in Idaho, you're going to have a job forever, right? If you understand forestry, you're going to have a job forever. These are jobs that are really fundamental to our everyday happenings. The irony is it's also where this great merger of people that don't classically go to school tied to people that have been educated in take conservation. Fish conservation is something that, look, you got to know water flow, you got to know water quality, you got to know clarity, you got to know
there's a lot to it, especially in the aquaponics, which is what the instructor was getting in, who happens to be the Idaho Teacher of the Year 2 years ago, but it was a coincidence that that's not why he got the grant, but what he is doing now, he will tell you that as he has seniors, before they graduate, they have job offers with Fish and Game and other recreational outdoor areas. So kids can, again, go right into a career, or they can get into a career and then go get a 2 or 4 year degree. There are great pathways. And we want our students, we want them to be excited about their learning. And it shouldn't just be that I go to school so that I can play football. We hear a lot of stories around kids who, hey, athletics is what got me through. I would love to hear students talk about that one particular class or the couple of classes that get them through. By the way, the grant program is called the Idaho Career Ready Students Grant. And ultimately, everything is about the career. We have a tendency to say college and career. Aren't we ultimately, isn't college about getting you a career? I hate how we have separated, there's an educational pathway and then there's a work pathway. All of the pathways should lead to you being able to take care of yourself, being self-sustaining, which is some sort of a career. And if you're a teacher, that's a career.
Can I ask you something? Kind of a broader, educational history thing. At what point did the education or some portion of the education in the United States be removed from that efficacy and pragmatic, like, okay, I need this to get this, and moved into, well, philosophically, there's a moral prerogative here. Like, you need to just be educated for to this nth degree for education's sake. And it kind of became a ridiculous question to ask, wait, when and why am I going to use this? And people are like, oh, of course this 16-year-old would. Yeah, but like the 50-year-old asked it too. Like, wait, if what I'm doing right now, or I'm not 50, but 43-year-old's like, okay, if what I'm doing right now wasn't tied to these things in education, what can somebody value or articulate the value proposition for those aspects of it? Like, that must have been some transition eventually where
I'm sure someone can articulate the exact precise history of it, but so I'm going to give it to you according to how I see it. I think coming out of World War II, where there was the high production, we saw a lot of what have been characterized as blue collar jobs. And you get into like the 60s, 70s. And I think you had a generation that believed, hey, we want something better for our kids. And so we're going to start pushing college. We got away from the trades. We got away from the jobs that we all need. Right. And there was this culture around the more you're educated, then, it's better if you're doing some of these other jobs and going the college route than, some of the historical jobs that really are the backbone of our country, which built our country. And I think there was an overcorrection in an attempt to just elevate education in general, which is okay, but we swung too far to the other side, in my opinion. Now, if you're an Idaho student or frankly a student anywhere in the country, if you want to go to college, we're very good at getting you there. Right. And I'm not saying that we take that away. This is raising up that other side, that it's of equal value. For too long, we have talked to our students and said, there's so many opportunities for you and all the doors that you can go through, but you must first go through this one door. What I am saying and what I'm advocating and promoting everywhere we go is that all of our conversations are related to the why we do this. We want kids to stay in Idaho. If you want to stay in your own backyard, let's go find those local businesses and industries that care about the education of the students as well. Let's make those connections and put some programming in place in our schools with instructors that can do it and help kids feel good about what they're learning and like it.
And if I may, I have to assume it helps with the ask to the community, right? The number of people that I've talked to over the last year about education, it's very interesting because a lot of them, or at least some people, say like, okay, well, what's the value for everybody else, right? Like, why are we spending this money? Or, I know House Bill 93 was a big question of people arguing on both sides about what the ROI for the state is. But at the end of the day, if you have an education system where people are like, okay, my kid learned these things and these make sense to my family and to my community and to the broader state in general, right away, like it's self-evident why it would be important for somebody to learn how to, cut up game or fly a drone for ag. It's like, okay, look, nobody's arguing against the kid learning how to fly a drone to, spray fields. Nobody's arguing against that. So if you have a broader and more robust collection of things that are offered that kids are able to study, then the value proposition is self-evident. It's like, okay, I could get behind a kid learning how to work with an ag, or I could get behind a kid learning how to, work hatcheries and things of that nature. Like, the value proposition is very easy to defend if it's already self-evident.
And we've got some data around that shows that many of our parents who choose a different educational delivery model, sure, whether it's online, homeschool, microschool, the tendency is to do those in those earliest grades. And we see students come into the public system 7th, 8th, 9th grade because of the career technical piece. That is not something that an online or a homeschool. And I'm not diminishing how they do that, but we're seeing parents make choices for their students to be involved in some of these programs because they have the equipment, they have the access to be able to go into the warehouse and be in an apprenticeship or an internship. And so when we talk about this kind of competitive, well, public schools, you need to be competitive with all of the other ways that kids can get educated. I think that is the one place where we beat the competition in attracting students because of those programs. And that's good. We want to do that.
Sure. But if I may, and I looked this up.
There we go.
Of like somebody was bringing up homeschooling in a conversation I was having, saying that homeschooling has overwhelmingly produces better results. It's like, okay, maybe you're also predominantly 1-to-1 or 1-to-2. I want you to take that, like, so Idaho, I think we're like on average one teacher per 16 students or somewhere in that, let's say 1-to-15. I don't know exactly what it is.
Well, it's higher than that, but
okay, great. Let's say it's 1-to-20. Doesn't matter. But the point is like, okay, do you have a better educational model in that you're one-on-one all the time? Because if you want to 20x the number of teachers in Idaho, then yeah, we could produce a different result as well. Not even saying that the result that is being produced is subpar, but these are not the same educational models. If you want to say, hey, you're the best one-on-one instructor in the state, that's totally fine, but you're not the best 1-on-20 instructor in the state. These are different models. So to compare the two and say like, okay, well, they beat you by 10% in reading efficacy or, whatever it might be, that's a ridiculous comparison because, again, you're just not comparing the same thing.
Well, and I think this is where we get back to what makes the public school attractive in some regard for parents who have looked at different choices out there. Fundamentally, and I think you agree with this too, I hope and want every kid in Idaho to have the best education. We need the most well-educated citizenry and student that we can come up with. And people are going to decide what works for their family. The career technical piece is an element that public schools and charter schools can provide for all students at a scale and in a way that you're not going to get that in a micro school.
Right. You're not going to have diesel mechanics and welders, and you may have one of those things or maybe two, but you better be rolling the dice hoping that your student wants that one thing. Because if you're a diesel mechanic and he or she wants carpentry, that's a different skill set, man. Like I could do pretty good in carpentry, can't do good in welding right now, right? Like maybe I could eventually, but not today.
Yes, and I don't know where, I can hammer a nail, but I would also add that we have a tendency to think of career technical education in the lens of what you've just said, diesel, welding, some of the things that we classically think of. Career tech is culinary. It's cooking. There's a lot of math in that, a lot of science. And that's what I love about these classes. You can say, oh, here's how you figure out fractions. And we're looking at a paper with fractions. Right. Get into the kitchen. You want to learn what happens when you don't get your math right with fractions? Right away. Yeah. And I want to expand how we think about career tech. Let me think about it here. It is Westside School District over in Clifton, Idaho, of all places. It's not too far from the Utah border. They have a career tech program that is cosmetology. And they have community members come in and get their hair done and different things. And so they're training kids in some of these areas that we have young ladies and young men, whoever's interested in it. They're getting a jump start on what their interests are. That's the learning. That's the type of environment that I want to get to. That when we think about going to school, we don't picture 25 kids sitting front to back in rows of desks while there's a teacher at the front just going on. And then we go take a test.
Just going on. Just droning on.
And not everyone does that. And don't hate on me, teachers. I'm not saying everyone does. But honestly, if you, for most people, if you say, immediately picture a classroom. Now, I think if you're 40 and above, that's the image that likely comes to your mind.
1,000%.
We're changing what that looks like, and we want to change that mental image for people. Part of the issues around education, and when you get to policy and legislating and some of these other things, we all have been to school, therefore we're all experts on school. And we bring with us our own kind of baggage of our experience of what it was like. And we look at our math scores. We got a lot of work to do in math. We're doing so well in reading, and now we're saying, let's keep the gas down on reading, and now we got to put the pedal down on math. We carry with us, most of us, this image of what the math class was like. Again, sitting tightly in here, right. Teacher talks, try to do your homework, then take a test. All right. Kids don't learn effectively like that. I don't know that we did either, but I think we have more attention to making it a meaningful experience of connecting math to everyday life. Well, why are we learning math? Not to take a test, so that you can actually do things.
Yeah. I remember in my math textbook, there would always be that like one real life picture of like, oh, this was a dude trying to fell a tree, and like, where's the tree going to land if like this is the shadow? And it's like that was the real articulation of, if you're ever an arborist, and you need to find out how far this tree's going to fall, like this is the equation you could do. And it was just a complete failure of articulating, the value proposition to the young person.
So this is how we level up on math. And I love this example. In the spring, I was in Weippe, which is above Orofino. So Orofino's right along the Clearwater River, and you drive up the mountain and you get up to this little town called Weippe. They have a lumber mill there. They also have a small high school, Timberline High School. And they have a forestry program that is new to them. Through this grant, we were able to, help them get that. We went out into the woods at a real logging site with the students, and they were walking around identifying the species of the trees that were there. They were, someone's going to be mad that I don't remember the name of it, but they could take whatever the tool was and look up through the thing, and they could calculate
how far it would fall.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And how high up it was, in which direct, how, and then a log that was had been cut that was laying down. They've got what looks like a yardstick, but it's a yardstick on steroids. They could, by reading the yardstick and measuring at certain angles, and then also doing math, they could tell me how many board cubic feet would come from that log. That's a game changer to me. So what you had was this one-dimensional experience of
in trigonometry. They're like sine, cosine.
The tree,
yeah,
and I appreciate that they were going for something that was meaningful.
Sure.
But you tell me who's having more fun doing math.
Yeah, it wasn't me. It was definitely those kids.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Yeah. Again, all programs that I think are very, again, they're fixing the problem with like, why education? Because that's, there is a wave across the United States in recent decades where people are like, wait, why are we doing this? And this brings it back. I actually have a good friend who wrote a book called The Labor Gap. And the Trade Gap, Zach Hansen. He wrote this book. He was a white collar, worked in AI on the business end of it. He went to undergrad, and then there were no jobs, and then went back to grad school, which is like, that's what you do if you come out with debt and you have no job. You're like, oh, let's re-up. So he goes back, gets his master's, ends up getting, a job in, the AI sector, ends up losing it recently, not because he was bad. There was just massive rounds of layoffs for people with MBAs working in the business sector of AI. And he has savings, it uses up all his savings. And then throughout this time frame, he's like, well, dude, I'm applying. There are like 2,000 people applying to these jobs. So he literally starts getting contracts with the U.S. Forest Service for like trapping, and he starts selling hides because he was like trapping and doing these other things recreationally as a hobby. Yeah. And he started paying his mortgage with it. Right. Also went to CWI and picked up a welding certification in like just a couple months.
Turns out you can make money and enjoy what you do.
Right. And here he was like, I did everything right. I have these advanced degrees. I have all this experience. I've done everything right. And I can't get a job to save my life. But the second I have a beaver pelt, or the second I can trap this other thing, or the second I can weld. And by the way, when he went to CWI, to your point about education and where education should be done, shows up his first day. He's got all his equipment. He's like ready to go. And the instructor comes into the room, is like, pick up all your crap. We're going outside. You ain't learning a book. And they take him outside, and instantly they're like, put your stuff on, blah, blah, blah. And they start again, learning how to weld.
Learning
right.
by doing.
And so the idea that, okay, we're going to experience this or learn this trade in this sterilized, everybody's facing forward setting just flew in the face of pragmatism, which is, no, if I need to teach you how to do this, we got to go out there and we got to get going right now, because that's what learning is going to look like. And I'm sure there was some other, number stuff along the way with gases and whatnot.
Oh, well, sure. Yeah. I mean, the point being, how are we going about educating?
Right.
And are we providing that relevancy so that our students see it? So I'm going to share another example of how I think our school leaders are looking at solving problems while we're teaching and training our kids. So I was in McCall a couple weeks ago when I was at their high school, and the superintendent was sharing this experience with me. So this is his, I can't remember his first or second year as superintendent. Nonetheless, he was the principal a year or so ago. And so he said, I was a principal here at the school, and we had a snow day, and we couldn't the snow wasn't so terrible that kids couldn't get to school, but the roads weren't cleared. And so if you can't get the buses through, then they had to call a snow day. So he called somebody at the city, I'm going to assume, I didn't ask who, and said, hey, when are we going to get these roads cleared so we can get the buses
curious.
through? Mm-hmm. Because we haven't seen the snow plows out. The person on the other end of the phone says, we got plenty of snow plows, but we've only got one person with a CDL that can drive. And so the principal, the now superintendent, then principal, he said, I came back to school. He said, I went and found a teacher that's a go get it done guy who was teaching AP science of some kind. I don't know if it was AP biology, but an AP science class, and said, we're going to start a CDL class. We got to get some kids trained with a CDL. So we got to solve a problem here. We got to get people who in the community can go and have some of these jobs. And the teacher was like, but I'm a science teacher. I don't know anything about CDL. And he had never had a CDL. So then the science teacher is standing there and he's like, yeah, I didn't have a CDL. He said, so I spent the summer going and getting a CDL so I could learn what it was like and how I could teach students. And so last year was their first year that they opened the class up. And then he brings kids down. They don't have the right kind of vehicle to train.
Sure.
So he brings kids down here to the Boise area, and I'm not sure who they've partnered with, but kids can practice. So they do as much as they can online, and they do all of the prep work, and then he brings them down here to train so that when they're 18, they can then go do the road test and all of the tests. They're also accessing, for the 18-year-olds, they're accessing some of the launch dollars to be able to do this. So the first group that they got through, the teacher said, I didn't know what was going to happen. Every single one of those kids got hired to go drive a truck somewhere. And I said, well, what about here? Do they stay in McCall? And the superintendent said, no, we didn't keep one of them because they got hired out. He said they got hired in Eastern Idaho and they got hired in the Treasure Valley. And the teacher shared with me that one of the students who he knew just down on his luck, the family was going through some problems and some struggles. The kid had been homeless at some times. The kid got an offer to go drive a truck for $88,000. And the kid sent a picture of his contract that he was signing to the instructor and said, thank you. Thank you for making this possible for me. And I mean, you could tell the teacher was just so emotional about it. And I said, how many kids have you got in the program this year? And he says, we've got 32. Now, I don't know that every single 32 of those kids are going to end up making $88,000 right out of high school, but they have a skill. They have something that if another thing they want to do, you have something that you can do. And plus, driving a truck is an honorable profession, which, by the way, we need them. We need every truck driver that we can find. I love that the superintendent, it wasn't hey, I'm mad at the city and this is ridiculous and I'm going to go now and sit at the city council and I'm going to complain that we have all these snow plows. He was a problem solver. What can we do? It's that supply and demand. Where do we get that? Well, we know where the demand is. Well, I know where the supply is too. And these students are in our high schools. And it's not about turning everybody into a factory worker and turning everyone into a plumber, but it's providing the opportunities and the access to the training in the program so that they can then decide for themselves what they want to do, where they want to go, what they want to be.
I know you're short on time.
And my answers are very long-winded.
No,
and I'm sorry.
They're so good. I just, as you're saying this, I have some shortcomings in my professional experience in that I don't really understand how jobs work, and I don't understand what it takes to get jobs. And because of that, I don't understand when people are like, hey, our young people are suffering because of jobs. They don't have jobs. I don't know whether that's right or wrong. I assume it's right because people are like, hey, we don't have these jobs. But the story that you just articulated, along with several others that I've heard recently, make me so optimistic for, like, I have 3 boys and I've worried a lot in recent years. I'm like, dude, how are they going to make it happen? I mean, I'll be honest with you. When I moved to this state, I left the only thing I had ever done, which was education. And I left that behind and I was like, wait, what do I do? And it was a very, very difficult time for me as, you know, like a 40-year-old dude, like, hey, I don't have value in this community anymore. I don't even know what job I would apply for if I applied for a job. And it was, you know, this very tough thing. And by the way, I never applied for a job. Like, I just invented another one. But the point is that
let's teach our kids that too.
I think entrepreneurship is great. I also do not think it's for everyone. It is horrifying. It's really upsetting.
Being self-employed is its own thing. Yeah.
It is its own monster. And for the people that can do it, I think it is a wonderful thing. For the people that can't do it, I think that there need to be other viable, self-evident paths forward. And, you know, this story that you articulated about the truck driver is one of, you know, many. We're talking about diesel mechanics, talking about garage door repair people, like just there are all of these professions that are very much needed, that our young people can engage in. And if we can connect more of those young people and explain to them, hey, this is sitting for you right here. It's going to take 12 months or it's going to take 24 months, whatever it is. It's right here though. You need never despair about your future because this thing is waiting for you. All you have to say is yes, and then get the work done. It's going to take work from you, but it is here. Here's a path forward. And that's something in my life that I've never really seen, like this path forward. I've always engaged in this very nebulous, like, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? I don't know. Right. I don't know anybody who's done it. Like, let's see if it works. And that's really not great. And I think we'll have more people doing better if we have those paths forward and people understand that.
And we now have, this last session, I advocated that we change up our graduation requirements. So all of our schools and charters, districts and charters are required to come up with pathways to graduation. We don't want to just leave that to the places that we're doing it. The expectation is everybody is showing how kids have different pathways to get to these places. So let me tell you what some of the limiting factors are. One of the things we need to do a better job with in the education sector is letting our school counselors and our teachers know what the jobs are. So some of the things that you just listed off are fantastic jobs. I don't want students, when they're thinking about, oh, I really love biology.
Sure.
What can I do with that? There are so many things you can do with it. Every industry just about needs some sort of, especially in R&D, they need biologists. We can do better connecting our teachers and our counselors to what the actual jobs are. And so when a kid says, hey, when will I ever need this? Well, have you ever been interested in, start listing off all those things that connect them to that. The other thing that's going to be a little more challenging, and I'm not going to stereotype everywhere and everything, but we also need to have expectations around work ethic for our kids. And I think part of this change of sitting in a classroom and just absorbing the information and taking the test, that doesn't contribute to that work ethic part. It's what you were sharing with your buddy. Yeah, we're going to be in the classroom, but the classroom's out of here and we're going to get to work.
Right.
I think that that's how the school setting helps with that work ethic piece. I talk to industry and business people all over who say, we can teach students or we can teach our new workers some of the ins and outs of the job, but we can't teach them to come on time. We can't teach them to come more than 3 days without calling in. I also hear from employers all the time who, kids don't want the face-to-face. We're going to text you about this or that, or, well, maybe I'll work, maybe I won't. I don't want the late shift. I don't want the weekends. We have to, as a society now, get back to some of the societal basics of what a work ethic looks like and what the expectations are. But the education sector, I think, has a role in that. And we want to produce students that are ready to go.
Yeah. Listen, I appreciate your time. I don't want to run over. I feel like we're like on a pitch where we could really go forever. thank you for coming in. Is there anything you'd like
you.
to hit here at the end?
Oh gosh, I think we've talked really nicely about where we are with career technical education, and maybe not touch on something, but I always like to leave any education conversation I have with an invitation to those that are listening. Idaho is not failing. And I always want to invite people to join me in that message, that there are fantastic things happening. You may not know about them. And if your kid isn't involved in some of these programs, or you're thinking in your mind as people are listening, I wonder if my high school is doing something like that for my kid. They are. Go find out. And maybe your kid hasn't told you. And so as a state, as we talk about where we want to go, and what's the accountability look like? How do choices factor in all of this? I don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that we've got good people doing good work every day. And nobody goes to their classroom thinking it's okay that students are failing or fall through the cracks. We're making some tremendous progress.
Yeah, I had many conversations with people about education, and I would echo your sentiment, which is, look, if there's something that you dislike, come forward, articulate it clearly, and let's see where we are and let's see how we move forward. But
yeah, let's fix it.
Yeah. The number of people that are just like, oh, well, everything's bad and it's, irredeemable. It's like, I don't understand what you mean. You're not even saying, is it test scores? Is it attendance? Is it graduation? Like, tell me the thing that needs to be fixed. And, Idaho can start working on it. And again, on all those metrics, Idaho is improving significantly. So it's kind of like, look, man, what is it in particular? And again, I'm not saying, I think very much to your point, I'm not saying any student who doesn't graduate, like one student not graduating is one too many. Totally fine.
Absolutely.
But to say that one student didn't graduate, so the other 300,000 are being failed, that's not a fair articulation either. Like, we can be self-reflective, but that doesn't just mean unrepentantly self-critical. That means reflecting positively and negatively and then addressing it from there.
I agree. And you've said it very nicely. I think being precise about what the complaint is. And I have people that will call or see me somewhere and they'll present a problem, an issue, a challenge, and listen and talk through it. And what I find most of the time is that many of it is they believe education in general. Like, I just think there's something wrong with education these days. Okay, well, help me know
Let's parse that out. What does that mean?
Yeah, and in the end of the conversation, somehow it always comes back to, but I think, the local school is doing a pretty dang good job, all things considered. And I like the attention to education. I think that's important. And I think we're at, there's a tension, and I think it's an outgrowth of COVID. Some of the things and feelings and thoughts that were in the works got accelerated to now. And we're all instinctively feeling like we need to do something better. And technology is impacting what that delivery looks like. The needs of our students have changed. The family dynamic is different. All of these components, I think people feel uneasy because we know that it's different and we know we need to do something different. And I want to be on the team that's like, let's look forward, let's get that vision and go, rather than, well, I'm looking back and I didn't like all of those things. Okay, well, there's some things I didn't like either. Where are we going now?
Yeah. Look, I feel like we're going to keep going. I'm going to have to call it. Superintendent Critchfield, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Let's do it again.
Thanks.